Good afternoon, everyone. Well, good afternoon here in Australia, everyone. My name's Julie Golding, and I'm the Business Development Manager for New South Wales and Canberra, obviously for Ponant. It's so exciting. I am so excited today because we have Craig Farrell, who you all know, National Account Manager, and he's currently in Europe right now. So we're crossing live. I feel like I'm a newsreader crossing live to Craig Farrell in Europe. Where are you, Craig?
Amsterdam at the moment, a very cold and dark Amsterdam. Oh, not very cold, but it's 6 a.m, so it's dark.
Yeah, he's just having his morning coffee now while we're all getting ready to have a wine or a champers wrap up on Friday afternoon. So so it's we are really excited to take you through Europe. We know that business is revving up now with the borders being announced to open. So this is a perfect timing, and with us having our European deals as well, we'll talk about in the presentation. So this afternoon, we will take you on an overview of the Ponant fleet that goes to Europe. We'll also have a Q&A. The most important probably is the Q&A regarding COVID and what it's like over in Europe at the moment. Safety on board and safety on shore, which is really very important at the moment, and also some day-by-day highlights, which I'm really looking forward to hearing, and we'll finish off with our offers. So just wanting to do a quick overview of the Ponant fleet. As you all know, or some of you may not know, but there are 12 ships in the Ponant fleet, and it all started off with our beautiful luxury yacht called Le Ponant. That has 16 staterooms, 32 guests. The reason why I thought I'd show Le Ponant is because she does travel around the Mediterranean, usually chartered, but just something to keep in mind if you do have any guests wanting something more of a yacht experience. And then we have our sister ships. We have 4 sister ships in our fleet for Ponant. These are 122 to 132 staterooms and suites. Therefore, as I mentioned, 2 of those ships actually cruise in Europe in 2022 and 23. That's Le Austral and Le Lyrial. These ships are a small capacity with a unique atmosphere, absolutely beautiful, with a subtle blend of luxury, intimacy, decorated with furnishings of the high quality, beautiful soothing tones, very neutral, beautiful sister ships that we have, and they are quite a young fleet as well. Most of you will probably have heard of Le Soleil. Le Soleil doesn't actually go around the European waters. She's actually one of our ships, we're excited to say, comes into our waters. There's also Le Austral that travels in Antarctica. But so Le Lyrial and Le Austral, Le Lyrial are the 2 ships that will be in Europe. We also have the Explorers. Now, these are the newest ships in our fleet, named after explorers. These particular ships, now there's 6 ships in the Explorers fleet, and they're absolutely beautiful. Craig will talk about Le Jacques Cartier in a moment, because that's the ship that he experienced last week. And these are beautiful technology. They have the underwater blue eye lounge, which is, a very beautiful, distinct feature of the Ponant ships. And they are 92 staterooms, so some of them 92 staterooms, and they bear the names of the French explorers. And Craig will talk more about the Explorer fleet in a moment. So for 2022 and 23 in Europe, we have Le Champlain, the Bougainville, the Dumont d'Urville, and as I mentioned, Le Jacques Cartier, Le La Perouse, which most of you have heard of, sails in our waters doing the Kimberley region and the other areas like the South Pacific. So 6 explorers, 4 sister ships. We've got the Le La Perouse, Le Ponant, which is our yacht, but we've got the other ship brand new, which is the Commandant Charcot, making it 12 in our fleet. So the beautiful French design, which we're renowned for, beautiful natural light. There's a French designer, Jean-Philippe Nuel. He actually has contemporary colours, beautiful balconies. So 97% of the staterooms have the private balconies. And you can see the beautiful light, the beautiful areas on board the ship. So our wonderful staff on board, they are bilingual, so speaking English and French to welcome you on board. And just stunning areas throughout the ships on all of our fleet. You've also, when you're sitting in the sauna, wouldn't it be nice to look out in Europe and just see a beautiful town going by while you're steaming yourself, which is quite lovely. And the great thing about the Ponant fleet is the access. So being able to travel places like, you know, the Tower of London Bridge, you've got being able to go into the centre of towns. So that's the big unique feature of our Ponant fleet ships, being able to access those big towns and regions, basically just most of the time being able to step off. So you can see here is a great example of being able to step off the ship and just walk straight into a town, unlike having to, you know, a few kilometres out, because then having to disembark with a lot of guests. Hugging the coastline, our ships being able to cruise past those beautiful historic villages in Europe, and you can stand on your balcony or stand in the beautiful vantage points. I'm sure you did that, Craig, while you were cruising from Malta to Rome, just stood on your lovely balcony looking at the beautiful scenery. So, and also iconic experiences. So being able to go into areas like the Corinth Canal and having the access to some pretty amazing places that the larger ships can't get onto. Sometimes we will be able to jump in and have a dip. Just, you know, if you're in the Med, drop anchor and be able to just swim around off the back of the ship. That's another unique experience that the large ships cannot do. And obviously, we are known for our French touch. So the friendly French staff, very welcoming, you know, the beautiful food on board, which Craig's going to speak about. We are very proud of our French heritage, but obviously we are cruising, and the staff on board cannot welcome you enough. One of the things I love about Ponant is that open bridge policy, where you can actually go and meet the captain greets you, you can go and have a chat to him. If people love, you know, sailing, they can actually talk about nautical things. And so it's just a very welcoming environment on board all of our Ponant ships. So I'm going to hand it over to Craig in a moment, because we're dying to hear all about his cruise. But before I do, I thought I would ask Craig 3 important questions, and it's get the serious stuff out of the way first before we go on an amazing Epicurean delight. But 3 questions I have for you, Craig, which are really important at the moment. COVID safety. So can you explain the procedures from pre-boarding, on board, and disembarking as part of Ponant's Sail with Confidence protocols?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me, Jules, and hello, good afternoon to everyone. It's certainly different traveling now. So not just the cruise side of things, but the actually getting around Europe. Like, never has it been more important to have a trusted travel advisor, I would say, in your corner. Like, there's so much more paperwork, and I sort of think it was very similar to traveling post 9/11. There's just more, it takes more time to get through airports. There's more paperwork that you need to fill in, and a few more checks and things like that. So that's just traveling in general. Like, I've done a few internal flights over here and a couple of trains and that sort of thing. In terms of the cruise, we require a PCR test within 72 hours prior to boarding. So that's another, you know, could be a slight difference to what your clients are used to. They really do need to arrive at least a couple of days before their departure now into Europe, because it's a matter of, you know, finding a testing centre. Sometimes you can just jump in a taxi and drive through. Other times you've got to actually book in for an appointment, and I would imagine the numbers of those testing sites will shrink by this time next year, because there's going to be less cases and all that sort of thing. So just allow, you know, at least 2, I would say 3 days prior to boarding a cruise to get tested. On board, so once we got on board the ship, there's a COVID safety kit in each of the staterooms that includes masks and sanitizer. A lot of information is given about COVID safety measures on board. And in terms of the masks, there is an expectation, or not an expectation, a requirement that you wear masks when you're wandering around the ship. And then once you sit down to eat or drink, obviously the masks are removed. So it felt completely safe, and actually the safest mode of transport I've done since I've been here. I felt was on board the ship, and obviously you'd expect me to say that because I'm a salesperson, right? But it was true, and this cruise almost didn't happen, which I wasn't going to mention this, but I will. The week before, I travelled from Lisbon to Amsterdam, and found out a few days later that I was sitting next to someone who was COVID positive. So so I got a message from the authorities saying, you know, get tested. I was actually booked to get tested the next morning anyway, prior to going on the cruise. And I was fairly confident, although I did go to the supermarket and get like a self-test thing just to put my mind at ease before the test. So I was fine. So obviously the vaccinations work and we wear masks and everything on board the flight. Anyway, that's getting away from the question a little bit. So that's
that's pretty. To know that before you cruised, someone beside you tested positive, you had to go and quickly act before you were able to board.
Yeah.
And then negative test you bought from the shop, and then was it then having to do the test again, the test at 72 hours before?
The following morning must have been a Thursday. I was due to board the cruise on the Saturday, so I was already booked in on the Thursday. So within that 72-hour period for a test anyway, and then I just had to. I've got to say, it was a nervous wait from that morning, and I found out the result I think at about 9:30 or 10 o'clock that night. So there's another day that you've kind of got to wait for the result as well. So it's definitely worth booking those few days prior to the cruise when you arrive in Europe. And in terms of did you ask about shore excursions already?
Well, and it's a good question, and we had a quick question, and it's actually leading into the shore excursions. Does the negative PCR test cover you for all the ports in all of the different countries? So when you cruised, when you boarded, that negative test, did that cover you for the entire cruise?
Well, very good question. So because I was cruising from Malta, as you can see on the map there, to Italy have pretty much got the strictest conditions in Europe at the moment. Will that be the case in the middle of June and July next year? I doubt it, but obviously they were really hard hit when, in the first and second wave of COVID, and they're coming into their winter. So they're taking a lot of precautions. So actually, when we boarded the ship, we all had to get an antigen test when we got on board as well, because we could have been wandering around Malta or whatever. So there was another layer of checks involved, and that was easy. This ship only holds 160 people at a maximum. There was only 120 people on board the cruise. So we all went to the doctor one by one on board the ship and had our tests. And had our results back that day. Well, we didn't actually get our results, but we sailed, so we assume everyone was negative. And so that's you raised some really good points about being a smaller ship, but never has it been more relevant. I think the fact that we are nimble, we can adjust to these extra precautions. We could test everybody on board and not be delayed in our departure. I thought to myself at that stage, if you were a big ship, that would immediately put you a day behind schedule, I would imagine. So so that was one thing. So Italy is strict, and in Italy as well, you could actually only leave the ship if you were on one of the Ponant shore excursions. So that's was a different experience as well. Normally, as you know, with our small ship cruising program, that you can just get off at Agropoli or wherever, go and wander around the town, have lunch somewhere. That wasn't the case in Europe, in Italy this time. Whereas if I was cruising in Spain, I could have still done that. So, every bit like the Australian states, they've all got their own sort of rules and regulations, which is understandable.
Yeah, okay. And then, so life over in Europe at the moment, what's it like over there? Coming from Melbourne?
Yeah, well, it depends where you go. So, so when I was in Portugal, in Lisbon, they were just 2 weeks out of restrictions and things. So it was party time over there. I was surprised when I got to Amsterdam that there's very few restrictions. No one's wearing masks or anything like that. But you need the proof of vaccination everywhere. So getting back to that point on the shore excursions, you didn't need to show that you'd tested negative, but you needed to show the vaccination certificate everywhere, whether that was going to a restaurant for dinner, whether it was going to Pompeii, some of the sightseeing attractions. You need the proof of vaccination everywhere. And I've got sidetracked again, but Europe feels pretty normal. Where I was traveling to, I've got to say, probably felt quieter than usual, but that could have been the time of year as well. Like, it was late or mid to late October. And I must say, this is the best time to travel around Europe. Like, it's so different. Obviously, the less crowds, but just going to places like Pompeii, which can be a hot dust bowl in the middle of summer, you know, going there when it was 25 degrees instead of 35 to 40 was just a really pleasant time of year to get around Europe. It was great.
Yeah, good time. That's interesting, isn't it? October being a nice time. Usually people want to go August when it's peak and it's hot and it's summer, and so that's a good tip as well. October's nice, nice and mild.
All the Europeans are back to school or back to work and all that sort of stuff, so it's definitely quieter. And you know, obviously without the hundreds of thousands of Australians here, it's been quieter as well.
Oh, great. And so tell us about Le Jacques Cartier, part of our Explorers fleet. How was the ship itself?
Beautiful. So brand new, basically. It was so 12 months old, but she'd only done 7 cruises prior to mine, so it was you know, certainly brand new. Really almost a carbon copy of La Perouse, which a lot of people will be familiar with. So this is the 6th and final vessel in the Explorer fleet, and they're very cool ships, you know, very beautifully designed inside.
Yeah.
All of them are different, so they've each got their own personality because the decor is slightly different inside. But you know, the one thing that's great about our fleet, no matter what ship you're on, is that consistency. Like I was on Le Commandant Charcot 2 weeks earlier, and I could have been in the same stateroom, to be honest. And you know, I don't mean to brag, but you know, the staterooms on the sister ships are really, really similar. So there is that consistency across the whole fleet. But yeah, swimming pool, the underwater lounge that you mentioned, there's 2 bars and an open bar, obviously 3 bars, sorry, 2 restaurants, and just really beautiful public lounges. And it was a great atmosphere on board. So the one that I did was an English only speaking cruise, actually, so which we offer from time to time. And I was a bit unsure of that. Like I love the French and English thing, but it was a really everyone had a great time. The food and wine probably helped, right?
Definitely. So let's make us jealous. I'm going to let you now talk through your experience from Malta to Rome. It looks absolutely beautiful. So day 1, Valletta.
Yeah, thank you. It was, and I won't bore people with, you know, like a slideshow of my holiday, but it does give you a bit of an overview of what a typical Ponant yacht cruise is like. So it was a themed voyage, which we have from time to time. So this one was put together by our US office, so it was English speaking, and it was a food and wine theme on this one. So we boarded in Valletta. And beautiful city. So sailing out of there in the evening with all the city lights and everything was just magic. And so every day on the cruise, at least one of the shore excursions had a food and wine element. So our first port of call was Syracuse. One of the options here was to visit the local food market. There was a Sicilian flavors tour. I kind of avoided the food and wine tours as much as possible because I knew I was going to have enough on board anyway. So I opted for the other ones, and here I went here actually. So this is the sort of archaeological park and museum, and it was really good. We had awesome local guides in every area, so it makes such a difference, like them being able to translate these thousands of years of history into a short tour was brilliant. And the museum was fascinating. Then day 3 we were still in Sicily and at a little port called Taormina, which was stunning. But I actually got straight out of Taormina and went up Mount Etna, which was fascinating. So it wasn't steaming or blowing its top or anything when we were there, but it was really amazing to stand on an active volcano. Was very cool. But then I didn't realise, but Mount Etna is quite known for as an important wine growing area in Italy. So we then went to a local winery, had some tastings and a tour of the vineyards, and then sat down to a beautiful 4-course lunch. So that was one of the food options that I did go for actually, which was awesome. So it's just a kind of a nice balance. Like you can get, like a day in Pompeii, you can get a little bit overwhelmed by the history and culture and everything. So it's actually nice to break it up with some food. And in Reggio, we had some awesome tours here. Actually, there was Scylla and the Cianelea. But probably the main attraction here was the Riace bronzes, which were these bronze ancient Greek statues that were found in the water back in 1972. So that was great. And in the evening here, we had the first of our gala dinners with the guest chef on board. So on board the ship, we had Denis Imbroisi, who's quite a famous French chef. He's trained at the Jules Verne, you know, with Alain Ducasse and everything. But he's an Italian chef. So this was an interesting voyage in that we got to taste the sort of best of French and Italian food on board, so it was awesome. And then after that there was a show in the theatre, so there was a few late nights on board. It was good fun. And then Agropoli was this is a beautiful seaside town, as you can see. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Area. A lot of guests here visited a buffalo mozzarella dairy, and then there's also ancient excavations here, so a really awesome sort of acropolis and things that you can go and visit as well. So that was a great day. And then in Naples, this is probably my favourite day. So as I mentioned, I'd been to Pompeii previously, but always wanted to go back, because when I went the first time, I was on my own and did one of those ridiculous audio tours. So, you know, they seemed like a good idea at the time. And yes, you learn some stuff, but then without someone directly telling you, well, this is me anyway, I forget, you know, whatever was coming through with the thing. So I was really keen to always get back there with a guide, and we had an excellent guide. So just a fascinating place. Everyone that can get to Pompeii should at some stage. It was really great. But this day was a full day tour. So before we went to Pompeii, we actually went to a farm where they make their own wine, olive oil, you know, everything. And we got to make our own margarita pizza. So the iconic food of Naples. And this was a lot of fun. So this was some pizza making, and then off to Pompeii. So it was a really good balance of activities that day. It was good fun and a great tasting pizza. I think I missed my calling. And then Gaeta, I've got to say, I actually stayed on board this day. So on, as I mentioned, you couldn't just go and wander off in the little villages and all that sort of stuff, which for me, I didn't mind. I actually deliberately, a couple of days, didn't do one of the organised tours just to relax on board. You know, I was on holidays, wanted to enjoy the ship. So on the last day, I did some last minute shopping in the boutique, went to the gym, had a swim in the pool, and just relaxed. So Gaeta looks beautiful, but I have no regrets. I can always get back there at some other stage if I really need to. So that was it. And then we ended in Rome. So we had included transfers. So I went straight to the airport and had a really easy flight back to Amsterdam, whereas a lot of the people on board, most of them were American. And I mentioned earlier with the paperwork, depending on whether they were flying via London or via, a lot of them were flying via Madrid, they had different forms to fill in, and the forms are complicated. So luckily, again, with 100 or so people on board, we had staff that could help the half of the people that hadn't filled it in. We could actually sit with them and help fill that paperwork in. So yeah, it's just slightly more complicated getting around depending on where you're flying via and all that sort of thing at the moment, but it's worth every minute. It's great to be traveling again, and very, very excited that Australia is opening up its borders again soon. I've been following the news over here really closely, and it's awesome.
Oh, it's definitely a buzz now. I just had a cheeky question from Christine McLeroy. Did you have a hangover that day in Gaeta? Must be amazing.
Yeah, but I hadn't booked a tour, so I
yes.
I did want to take the last day off just to relax and everything. So no hangovers. I was drinking a lot of natural wines on board, Julie. So you apparently don't get hangovers with those because there's no sulfites and bad stuff.
So some amazing highlights, happened while you were cruising as well.
This was a cool one, actually. So again, the captain came over and said, you know, everybody jump out. And this was during one of the wine lectures, actually. So not too sure they were thrilled with the timing. But you know, we were passing Le Belleau, so one of the sisters of Le Jacques Cartier, which we were on. So everyone ran out on deck. and you know, the water spouts going, so did we, and everyone was sort of yelling and waving, and it was just really cool to think at that moment, yeah, you know, we're back, and Europe cruising is back, and it was exciting. And then another one was Stromboli volcano, so another really nice message to receive from the captain. One evening after dinner was that in, you know, 30 minutes we're going to be passing Stromboli, and it was erupting at the time. So this is not my photo. I took an iPhone photo, which was not nearly as good as this, but this is from, on all of our cruises, there's always an onboard, like a professional photographer and videographer. So if you've ever missed out on anything, it's great. You can just go to the, you know, and get the images that you want to get. So this was awesome. And then in terms of the other highlights, it was being the theme that it was, the food and wine, you know, sort of tasting your way through Sicily and southern Italy was unreal. Look, I'm not a wine connoisseur at all, but we had these sort of lecturers who were natural wine experts, and you know, talking about the differences between natural wines and conventional wines and things like that. So we got to do lots of tastings and all that sort of thing on board. We had Nancy Harmon Jenkins doing some lectures as well. So she's quite a well-known chef, or she's written about 15 cookbooks and well-known in the US. So she was great, you know, did a lecture on the Mediterranean diet. And then Danny's food, Danny Imbroisi, was incredible. So this was the last evening on board, another gala dinner, which was a 5-course degustation dinner in the main restaurant. So the food and wine on board, I think, is always great. But you know, having that Italian flavour on this one was pretty cool. And then on the next cruise, so after I got off, they were then having, this was much more for the French guests, they were having a Napoleon cruise. So like cruising through some of the areas that Napoleon battled or whatever, and actually having, like, tasting, you know, a chef was preparing some of the meals that Napoleon liked. So that was weird, but yeah, so there's often these themes on our cruises, which makes them a lot of fun.
Yeah, and very, very interesting. We're not jealous. We're all not jealous on this afternoon. We you know, we love our Australian wines, but we are it just makes us so excited to know that, you know, over in Europe that everyone's cruising again. I mean, Ponant were cruising during COVID, and so we've you know, we're back. We're doing it safely, as Craig's pointed out. It's probably the safest he's felt, you know, so you can reassure your guests because of the smaller ships and the way that it's. The way that we're running our operation, we have been doing for more than 18 months now during COVID. So,
and the overwhelming feeling I had, like since I've been here, you know, whether it's cruising or not, is that I'm just so excited that Australians are going to be, all of us are going to be back doing this soon. Like, it just felt so good. I've never felt so exhilarated, if that's a word, touching down at Charles de Gaulle as I did this time, because it had been, you know, 18 months, 2 years. So it was, it's really exciting. Anyway,
thank you so much. We are just drooling over here, and no, it's great that we were able to cross the light to you, just come off, so you're buzzing and you're excited. And as Craig mentioned as well, he's our Charcot expert here at Ponant, so he's also was on Le Commandant Charcot's dry run, so that if you ever want any information, you can contact us and we can put you in touch with Craig, because he experienced, you know, not only obviously our Explorer ships, and he's done a lot being at Ponant, but also our new ship, Le Commandant Charcot. But to draw your attention back to Europe, and we're excited. Obviously, we've had our half-price deposits happening, and that's been happening since the beginning of October. It'll go right through to the end of November. Half-price deposits. And I'll talk about the back-to-back cruises, because now more than ever, people are wanting to go longer. The majority of our voyages for Ponant are 8 days and 7 nights, nice little cheeky cruises. But if you can get the back-to-back, you get the 10% offer, which is absolutely amazing when you combine it with our 30% Ponant bonus if you do get in early for those sailings. And as you know, which I love about Ponant, the earlier you get in, the better the offer. You'll never have anyone on board saying, I waited till the last minute and got a, you know, exciting deal. It's always very fair with Ponant. There are no single supplements. If you have any solo passengers on your database, over 20 sailings for 2022 with no single supplement. And also, if you're wanting to entice your clients to travel on Ponant, they are given the $400 per person welcome offer. And if they've travelled with Ponant before, we know our loyal Ponant Yacht Club members love our member benefits. So there's always ways to save, but now you can actually, they only have to give a half price deposit for our 2022 voyages. This particular slide is pretty interesting because obviously 2019 we finished our Europe season. It was a little bit patchy in 2020 and moving 21, but in 2019 you can see up on the screen our top 3 Mediterranean and Northern Europe voyages, just in case you're ever wondering what sells the best in the Med for Ponant. Traditionally the Athens to Venice, Venice to Venice and Venice to Athens. And then we've also, and I guess as well because of our ships and the sizes, being able to access a lot of those areas that the large cruise ships can't get near, especially Venice. And then you've got Northern Europe with the Lisbon to Portsmouth, Dublin to Tromsø, which would be a very fascinating cruise, and Portsmouth to Dublin. So just some ideas there for you. And as I mentioned, the back-to-back cruises, here's some examples, 18 nights on board. This one's an absolute beauty, London to Copenhagen, April next year, so we'll all be allowed to obviously travel then. It does beautiful areas of Amsterdam, where Craig is at the moment, and you've got beautiful going into the Rhone in Denmark, you've got Copenhagen, it even goes into the area of Tallinn, so Russia, Helsinki. So it's a beautiful cruise, and as I mentioned, because it is a back-to-back, they get the 10% off. The French and Italian shores, so Malaga to Rome. You've got the Mediterranean, the Black Sea. The Black Sea over the last few years has become very, very popular and with a lot of Australian guests. So Istanbul, all the areas, and this one goes into Ukraine, Bulgaria. So it's actually going from France into that Black Sea area. And you've got the Adriatic, Ionian and Aegean seas here, which is a beautiful one from Venice to Athens going in June next year. And that hugs the beautiful coast, and obviously going into Dubrovnik and Croatia, which is another popular area. So there are some ideas of how to, maximise your commission, because you are booking those longer sailings, but also giving your clients, they are going to want to go over for much longer. Now, this is a very interesting slide, and Craig, can you tell us about the Smithsonian cruises that Ponant partners with?
I can indeed. That Nice to the Black Sea itinerary looks unreal, by the way.
That's my fave. Yep. That's my favourite.
Smithsonian, so as I mentioned, we do some English only speaking voyages at times. So this year they were and last year they were called the quintessential collection of cruises. But we've actually joined forces with the Smithsonian Journeys, which is the travel arm of the Smithsonian Institution, the biggest collection of museums in the world. So these are excellent on a number of levels. So there'll be 2 special guest speakers on board. So for example, that Athens to Athens one has the like an expert in Baroque art and the Renaissance period, and then another curator of one of the museums at the Smithsonian. So excellent experts on board. But in addition to that, we've now got 2 really clear options that can cater for whatever your guests are looking for. So because with these Smithsonians, that yes, they've got the special guests on board, but we also include transfers on the group arrival and departure days. There's an included tour in every single port, and in some of the ports there'll be a choice of which tour you can choose. And am I missing anything? Are they the main ones?
No, yeah, they're the main ones.
That's it. And then so, for people that are perhaps used to a river cruise in Europe, where they do like to have something included every single day and pay for as much as they can up front, these are an awesome option for them. So there's 10, I think, in Europe next year. There's 19 globally next year, but 10 of them are in Europe. And then with our normal Ponant yacht cruises, they're, I guess, ideal for people that are a bit more independent, that might choose to do 2 or 3 of the shore excursions that we offer, but then go off in some of these Greek islands and do their own thing, or whatever the itinerary is. So there's 2 distinct differences now with the Smithsonian and just the normal Ponant yacht cruising.
Fantastic. Don't forget, and I will also send a follow-up after this webinar. I'll send a follow-up to everyone next week for our Ponant 10s. We know that, you know, watching Craig's presentation and going through day by day, but if there's anything that you want to catch and go back to, we have some amazing, just, you know, under or over, just over 10 minutes. So short, quick training on everything Ponant, everything Port Gauguin. And we just launched 2023 Port Gauguin today as well, which is our beautiful French Polynesia voyages. So anything you need to know about Ponant, I'll send you all the link for our Ponant 10s. Also the link to our Ponant Pro area, which houses all of our marketing material if you're wanting any flyers, if you're wanting any Europe tiles, social media tiles and things like that, and all of our contact details. Ponant Pro is a fantastic area. And we also, don't forget, you've got us. So obviously Craig, Vic Taz, WA, that's South Australia, big area, Craig. I've got New South Wales and Canberra, and Julie Rogers. I'm not Julie Rogers, by the way. Julie Rogers is in Queensland. She looks after New Zealand and emerging markets in Asia. And we've also got Bianca Bratton, who's in New Zealand. We've also got our Asia team as well. So there's so much of us, and we all work together. We're a great team. So we want to thank you this afternoon. And Craig, thank you so much for crossing live, because he, you know, he's had his coffee and it's right early in the morning, so he's going to get on with his day. We just wanted to end to say there's so many exciting things happening at Ponant at the moment. We know you're all getting very busy. Don't forget, we launched Kimberley 2023 on Monday. So we have our 2 ships, Le Soleil and Le La Perouse, and those 2 ships will be in the Kimberley, maximising on capacity in that region. We've also have our amazing brand ambassador, Andrew Daddo, and he has done a stunning documentary which you can watch. You just click onto our website, there's a link there. The Commandant Charcot for the Arctic in 2023 is launching. And of course, 2023 Europe will be on sale in late November. So lots happening at Ponant. And Craig, thank you so much again.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks
that's all right.
On everybody.
Yeah, does anyone have any particular questions I can read out, or?
So I can't see anything in the chat box. Is there can you see that and not me?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. If anyone has any questions at all, let us know. But if not, can't see any coming through.
We must have answered.
Jump on. Yeah. Oh, Rosemary, I'm struggling to find flyers. Okay. I'll get in contact with you, Rosemary, no problem. And this will be recorded, everyone, so I'll also send out a recording of this presentation so you can relive that cruise all over again and then go through the amazing Malta to Rome, but just go back on any of the tips that Craig was giving over COVID. Please go to our website for our COVID safe policies and our Serenity policy as well. The COVID one is updating a lot. So always when you are speaking to a guest about Ponant, jump on our website, jump on the COVID safe policy just to make sure that you're updated, because you do deal with a lot of cruise lines, but we thank you for your support and for all of your bookings that you give us. And on behalf of us both, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jules. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.